Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Interventions and Detentions. I'm your host, Brad, and I'm really excited today about this episode because I get to share some time with not only a close friend, but a close colleague, Kim Kabrich, who is principal at Lakeland Primary School in LaGrange, Indiana. Before we get into Kim and primary principals, because I'm also a primary principal, I want to give a special dedication to this episode, and I talked to Kim in advance about this. We had a colleague who passed away very suddenly and unfortunately in a tragic car accident this week. Christine Mossberg, who was a first grade teacher for me at Woka Mills Elementary for many, many years. She's a tried and true bulldog from Wokaville and Woka Mills Elementary School. And Chris left us a little bit too early, unfortunately, due to this accident. But this episode is dedicated to Chris Mossberg and just the legacy that she's left behind for many, many students, parents, just everybody in the community. It's been kind of a hard hit. So, Chris, this one's for you. Kim, welcome to Interventions and Detentions. Let's jump in real quick. Give us a background of who you are, how you came to be a principal at Lakeland Primary, and tell us all about Kim Kabrich.
Well, thanks, Brad. I'm so excited. I've never done a podcast before, so I am very excited. I started my journey as an educator at Lakeland School Corporation in 2000, so I'm starting my 25th year. I've taught kindergarten, second, and third grade, all at Lakeland. And then I did teach for 7 years and then was approached to be an instructional coach in literacy and math, grades K to 5, in a lot of different capacities. I enjoyed that a lot, making a difference in helping to grow alongside teachers as they develop their craft, and that was very rewarding. I grew up as an educator in so many ways. That led me to get my master's degree in educational leadership from my alma mater, Ball State, chirp, chirp. And one way I saw that going into being a primary or a principal, my next path in education was just seeing the school in a big picture format rather than just the classroom outlook. That helped me to see all the moving parts that do really build and grow upon each other in a school from grade to grade. Another reason I wanted to pursue being a student leader was just that coaching impact of learning alongside the adult learners. It helped me to give me some insight to approach peers and noticing how it's different when just working with tiny humans.
Absolutely. And I'll just add, Kim and I, we started our journey together at Woka Mills when you became an instructional coach. I didn't know you real well as a classroom teacher. I know we shared some time at, our kids went to the babysitter together, so we would greet each other at pickup time. And when you became that instructional coach, you spent a lot of time in my building working closely with my teachers, introduced me to instructional rounds, which was really eye-opening from a principal standpoint. I had not really heard of that before until you brought it to the building. And I jumped on board with that so much. Kim and I actually have presented that before at conferences, instructional rounds. I feel bad that I'm not doing it in my building right now, but I think we're about ready to make that jump. I don't know if are you still doing instructional rounds at the primary?
No, actually that's another, we've gone to the PLC round at Lakeland, and they talk it more of learning walks. So it's very similar to our instructional rounds that we used to do. So we're going to start doing that more so this year. We've talked about it a lot last year, but just didn't finalize plans. So that's on the docket for this year.
There you go. And for listeners, if you don't know what instructional rounds are, basically teachers going into other teachers' classroom. I don't want to use the word observation because I feel like that gets too focused on evaluations. It's not about evaluative. It's about learning from your learning from your peers and seeing the good things that are happening and giving you ideas and oh, I hadn't thought about doing that before. And you can use it as a feedback tool for your peers. And again, not evaluative, but just a way to learn from one another. Is that a way to sum it up, do you think, Kim?
Yeah, I think you and I both, as coach and principal, we really enjoyed and got the opportunity to go in and out of classrooms all the time and see the awesome things that teachers were doing and kids were learning. But we wanted to expand that experience for more of the staff. If I remember right, we tried to include even paraprofessionals in that journey to give them an idea of different classrooms that they may not be in, but as a school, it was rewarding. I thought there was a lot of benefits to it.
Absolutely. And you probably don't realize this, but that process and working alongside with you through coaching and instructional rounds helped me grow as an administrator, because I will tell you the things that you are strong in when it comes to coaching, curriculum, all those things are my weakness. So you don't know this, but you really supported me through that process and helped me grow as an administrator, because before that, I didn't have an assistant principal. I didn't have a coach in the building. So when you were there doing those things, I was learning a lot from you side by side with you, and it made me a better principal. I learned a lot of things from you that I've now carried over into my new job as a primary principal. I call it new because it's year 4, but it still feels new. And that's part of the episode that we're going to talk about today is just 2 primary principals sharing stories of our day-to-day routine of what it's like to be with those little kids. So thank you for, the time that you spent with me at Lakeland, and, not only coaching teachers, but coaching Brad too. I was glad and fortunate to help mentor Kim through her internships, becoming a principal. And I hope you learned from me as much as I learned from you.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I think you're one of the reasons and one of the people that encouraged me to further my degree, and, taking on more classes while you have children of your own and trying to do that in a full-time job is daunting, but you were one that would help me to see, okay, the end is near. I think I remember the hardest part to earning that important certificate that's prominently displayed in my office was having to pass that admin test, which, assessments in general, this could go for adults and kids, but, a paper on the wall doesn't necessarily tell what type of an educator you are. So, that I enjoyed our time together, and I think we both learned a lot from each other.
Absolutely. I feel like one of my strengths has been looking at people coming up through the ranks. Let's say, teachers that spend their time in the classroom, and I don't know why I can kind of just pick out like, hey, I think you'd make a great administrator. And I'm not saying that was what I did for you. I think you already had that seed planted, but like you said, being your cheerleader, encouraging you and rooting you on, I feel like I'm kind of good at that. Sometimes I'm saying, I think you'd make a really good administrator. And honestly, that's what pushed me way back when. And as I had somebody who said, you really ought to think about going into administration someday. And I had no inkling of wanting to do that until I had that seed planted in my head. So we need more people like you coming up the ranks and joining administration. And it stinks sometimes because you take a really good instructionalist and classroom teacher out of the classroom and put them in a leadership role. But that honestly just helps grow more good instructionalists. So thank you for all that you do. Let's kind of back up. I always start by saying, let's jump in the time machine and travel back a little bit. You kind of hit on it a little bit, but tell us, what are some of the things that inspired you to make that jump from the classroom to the principalship? Because it's a journey, and being a principal is way different than being a classroom teacher. And what inspired you? What made you want to make that move?
I think, like I said earlier, it was just that all that experience I had as an instructional coach, and getting into the classes, knowing that an instructional leader is one component of being a principal. So I thought it was going to be a definite positive that I'm still using. I think the biggest challenge for new administrators is knowing the difference between how to manage adults.
Yes.
So having, you go to school to be a teacher. So They give you all kinds of ideas for how to reach students, but reaching adults is different because sometimes they don't want to shift their thinking or see a need to do some change to better their teaching. So I think all that experience in coaching helped get some broader shoulders, a little bit thicker skin. Of course, I never evaluated the teachers, but I always said, my job is to help you be better so that you get higher marks on evaluation. So in Indiana, we use the RISE at the time. Some corporations have gotten away from that, but just getting them to see, what they can do and how they can move that needle for the kids.
Right. And I think principals in general really need to have that coaching mentality because that's, whether we're coaching kids, we're coaching adults, we're coaching. And like you said it really well. Like we want to make you better. We want to make you score well on the rubric and your evaluations and just the things that you do day to day in your classroom. I feel like that's really our job. And it is hard working with the grownups, whether it be teachers, paras, custodians, secretaries, whatever. I've always said if you can take the adults out of being a principal and if we could just deal with children all day long, we'd have the best job in the world. And I don't mean that to sound bad. I mean, I love my teachers, my staff, our parents. I'm blessed to be in a very good place. I know you are too, but it's probably for me, the part of the job I love the least, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I felt like coming out of the classroom into the coaching position, I've still held on to that and I still try to. I try to get in classrooms as much as I can because that's, the energy that helps me to continue on. I think you and I both get the energy from the kids and positive interactions with staff and parents.
Yes, exactly. So when you made that jump and you've been how long now have you been at the primary? How many years as a principal?
This is my 4th year as a principal. And don't forget, I was an assistant principal for a day and a half.
That's right. It was short-lived, but I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I look at it as a very, very good thing. So in that 4 years, what has surprised you the most about the role of principal?
The shift of the amount of interactions and conversations you have in a day's time, it's just unbelievable. I found out that very early on that decision fatigue is a real thing. Did you know, Brad, that the average amount of daily decisions that you and I make in a day, what would you guess would be the number?
Oh, I knew you were going to probably go here when you started talking about this. And I'm sure I'll lowball it. It's got to be well over 100.
Yeah, it's 3 times that much, about 300.
Wow. And no
So,
wonder we're so tired at the end of the day.
yeah, no wonder when my husband, shout out to Scott Kabrich,
That's right.
when he is literally asking me what I want for dinner, I can't fathom what that needs to be. I don't care. Peanut butter and jelly sandwich is fine.
Like, what's dinner? What is that? That's crazy. 300 decisions. But I get it. I mean, and now, I sit here and kind of just reflect over today, like, yeah, probably 300 decisions, and some way more important than others. But man, that's a lot of processing going on. That's crazy.
And
300.
sometimes, yeah, you have to know what the answer is and go for it. Sometimes you have to say, well, I need to think on that one a little bit. Another thing that surprised me about principals, because in my experience, including being a principal under you, but principals always just seem to be so calm. I mean, they never seem to be too busy. And I mean that in a good way. Like they were never too busy to chat with or to run some ideas past. And it always seemed that they could always weather the storm, whatever that may be. But I really had no idea how the days can be so different and so fast paced. And when someone pops their head in to my office or catches me in the hallway and says, "Do you have a minute?" Or I remember you always saying, when we would step in your office or see you, you would say, "What's up?" And And, absolutely, come on in. I have a minute. Now I'm thinking in my head, do I really have a minute? Like,
Yeah.
I haven't eaten lunch and it's 2:00 in the afternoon, but yeah, come on in.
Yep.
That inner dialogue that we have.
Absolutely. I was going to say, do you ever get a lunch? I mean, how many days do you go without eating lunch? 300?
Well, usually I just save up all my calories and just eat like crazy from 4:00 till bedtime, which is not good, but
That's a principal's life. I tell you, there's very many days where I just, I could take lunch and I could eat lunch, but I'm grabbing something or running here and running there. And I do try to sit down for a few minutes. And it's like you said, I think it goes back to all those decisions that we're making. We don't have time to really think about lunch or to be hungry even. It's not like we're starving
Mhm.
ourselves. You're just busy from start
Yep.
to end. So for the people, I'm sure there's some educators listening that are in the classroom and maybe like rolling that decision around in their head, like, man, maybe I want to think about being an administrator. What's that piece of advice that you would give somebody who's on the fence of like, I want to, but I don't know that I want to. I don't want to spend the money or I don't want to do the time. What's one piece
Mhm.
of advice that you would give them who's considering stepping into administration?
Well, I've never been good at, even as a teacher or an instructional coach, at keeping my contract hours, which,
Absolutely.
the 7:30 to 3:30. But as an admin, you just have to be willing to arrive early and stay late so that phone calls can be done, emails can be answered, after the students and staff are well gone.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Turning back to, your a previous episode of trying to say no. That's a real thing. So you have to be willing to, negotiate your own time and figure out what's really important. Some of that mom guilt or wife guilt for me has been a real thing too. When I think about, just taking that time. Our daughter is now her second year in college, and our son is in 8th grade almost. Next year he'll be in the high school, and they just goes fast. So you can't get those moments back, but at the same time, I think back and they've seen how determined I have been to be able to move up to the position of being a principal, and supported me, in that as well. But the documentation and the data tracking, you've got to get all that done by certain deadlines or self-imposed deadlines.
Yeah.
But it's difficult to leave things that, for me, at least at the beginning, it's a little easier now, but being a type A person, I want to get everything done on that to-do list,
Right.
and having to leave and just knowing I'm not going to get it done today, but there's tomorrow. So
That's right. It is hard to kind of go to that direction of like, it'll be there tomorrow. Yep. That's easy to say, but it's not very easy to do, unfortunately. Well, let's kind of share some stories here back and forth of, being primary principals. My building is now K1. You are K1 too, correct?
correct.
Okay. Let's talk about a typical day. Let's start with the morning. What's your morning routine look like on a day-to-day basis at your primary school?
Okay, well, we've got my assistant principal, shout out to Sam Plu, and we share the load of our daily video morning announcements. So I'll take a week, he'll take a week. I record those when I first come in, first thing in the morning, before anyone says, "Hey, how you doing?" and starts talking to me. So then we upload those to our learning management system. So we really like doing that. The kids get to see our faces, and we get to connect to them, even though it's through our panels or smart boards. So then I usually check my schedule for the day, try to make a to-do list for at least that day, what needs to take, what needs to be at the top, those kinds of things. And through that, I've gone through a couple different models over the last three years or so of, I would try to prioritize my list. So like what would take 3 minutes to get done, I'd put that on my whiteboard, and what would take, or what could I get done within 3 hours of the school day starting. And then then on to 3 days or 3 months. And then it just got a little too overwhelming. Cause it's like short planning, but then long-term planning all in one. And I got overwhelmed with that. So that didn't last very long. And then I tried, I don't know if you've heard of this, Brett, but the Eisenhower matrix.
No.
Jason Shackow, shout out to him. He's our high school principal. It's like 4 boxes, and you put your to-do list in one of the boxes. So do it, things you can, like a to-do list.
Right.
And then what things you need to schedule, things you could delegate, and things that you just need to delete. And, it's been on your to-do list too long. It's probably not even important anymore. So there for a while, that really seemed to help me to feel a little more accomplished as to I am getting stuff done. So then I greet our bus riders, and my AP greets the car riders. And this year we started student greeters. So as the kids come into the building, then they are welcoming the students individually. And we switch out those kids about every quarter. So
nice. I like that. Gives a little ownership to the kids and, a sense of belonging and purpose in the building in the day. I like that. That's cool. I'll jump in here. I don't have an assistant principal, but my building's probably a lot smaller than you, especially now that we're just K1. I have around 140 some kids, kindergarten and first grade. We have waves of kids that come into the building in the morning before school starts because of the way our transportation is laid out, and my building's not on the main campus. So we have the primary building away about 10 minutes away from Albion. And then on the Albion campus, we have second grade through 12th grade in 2 different buildings. So we have shuttles that are kind of coming and going. We have car riders drops off. Kids go to the gym and play until that 8:30 time starts. I do the old fashioned announcements over the intercom. I've done video announcements before with my kids, especially on e-learning and virtual days. They kind of like that. I don't know that I've done it when we're in school, but that would be kind of cool to do. My day looks very similar, I think, just getting my schedule around, knowing what I'm doing, what's going on. And we'll talk about the but the unplanned fires that happen during the day. We'll talk about those in a minute, the unexpected things and how we deal with that. But, I try to be out in the hallway greeting kids, just making sure that everybody's, doing our procedures. We're very big on procedures in our building. We practice them the first couple of days of school and just keep focusing on them because we want things done. We call it the Cougar way. You guys probably call it the Laker way. Just knowing how to use the bathroom, walk in the hallways, go to the class, eat breakfast. We just want it to be routine, procedures. So that's what we spend a lot of our mornings doing and getting ready. And then the day starts and, I try to get into classrooms. I don't do it nearly enough. I'll be the first one to admit it. I want to say, yep, I'll be in classrooms today. And then those unexpected fires come up and you just have to deal with them, whether it's discipline, parent calls, all sorts of things. So how do you deal with the unexpected fires? When something comes up and you weren't ready for it, what do you do?
I've noticed if I'm regulated, I can pretty much go with the flow with any changes.
Yeah.
It's if I've had a rough morning or just stressed out and I can realize that I'm stressed out. But most of the time I can pretty much go with it. Say, well, that's kind of how education is. You don't always get through what you wanted to get through, or just having my sense of calm helps.
Yeah.
I think downloading my calm to children has always been a strength of mine, but then realizing that when I'm not calm, no one else is going to be. Like, I've read different articles about the principals' attitude, can be seen throughout the school. And I want to say everyone contributes to your school culture, but if I'm stressed, I don't want to portray that onto the kids and definitely not the staff. So I'm really blessed with having an assistant principal. We have a student interventionist and a counselor who all take turns in helping out with students that might not be making the best decisions. And we try to role play with the kids and help them to restore the relationship or the issue that was brought up. And we try to focus on, discipline means to teach. And at a primary building, they are learning, how to be a kind human overall. So larger issues that do come up, of course, admin deal with, but I'm very thankful that we have systems in place to help when things, come up, that it's not only me that have to do it, and delegating to people is difficult at times because I want to do it myself. And I found early on that I can't do it myself, all of it. So you got to really fall back on your team. Managing meetings and interventions and all of the things that come together for a principal. I think my two favorite Google things are my Google Calendar and Google Keep, because that's where I put down my ideas that I see or the things I need to get on my calendar to make sure. And having that all in one place really does help. We've had a few rough years with student behavior, so I haven't felt like until this school year that I've been able to be an instructional leader. So I've really been able to, in just these few months of school starting, that I've been able to get into classrooms a lot more often to help support the teachers. And when you help support your teachers, the kids will be taken care of too, as you know.
Absolutely. So thinking about a typical day, what's your favorite part of the day?
Mornings. Probably because I'm a morning person. New day, new start, blank slate kind of feel. Mm-hmm. Another part of my day that's my favorite is lunchtime. Because if you ever feel down and you want to feel like a true movie star, you just step into a primary cafeteria and everyone's waving and smiling, and they want a quick hug or a fist bump. So being known less as the person that was on their movie screen or on their projector in the morning, they say, "Oh, I saw you this morning." And I'm like, yeah, I'm also the principal too. I'm not just the lady that does announcements. So
I think that's the part that I love the most about being at a primary building is the celebrity status that we have. Even today at dismissal, I'm, out there on the sidewalk and the buses are rolling out and the kids are like pounding on the windows and they're waving and smiling and, car rider line getting hugs on the way out. It's like, wow, what did I do to deserve this? I'm just, being a principal. But those things are awesome that the little kids love you, because I feel like the upper elementary, you get a little bit of that. But as you go up, I'm sure Jason at the high school, he ain't getting hugs and he ain't getting waves when he walks in the cafeteria. I mean, there's probably some kids that acknowledge that, but it's different. It's just different.
Right.
And I
could connecting with kids. I mean, if you're not in it for the kids as an educator, whether it's a principal or teacher, we really need to think of something else, because that's the whole reason we're here. So connecting, and to each other. I mean, education can be very taxing, and being able to depend on each other and lean on each other is key.
Yeah, relationships, I keep saying that. That's probably my big focus over the last 10 years is just, whether you're a teacher, administrator, whatever, the relationships that you build are going to make you or break you. If you don't spend time building those relationships, your job is going to be so much harder than it is just to, establish that, have rapport, respect mutually between each other. It makes your day and your job a lot easier. That's for sure.
And genuine relationships, don't you think? Because if it's not genuine too, they see right through it, and then it's not really a connection. So.
Let's focus a little bit more just on primary leadership. When I left Lakeland, I'd been a K-5 principal. I went to middle school for a while, so I had 6, 7, and 8, and then we restructured, and I had grades 3 through 6 in an intermediate building. And then when I left and interviewed there was actually 2 openings at Central Noble: their elementary principal, which was grades 3, 4, and 5, or the primary, which was K1, 2. And when I interviewed, I wasn't really sure which position I was truly interviewing for. I guess both. And when Superintendent Morgan called and offered me a position, the one question he asked me is, which building do you see yourself in? And I really hadn't thought about it a whole lot, to be honest. And I kind of sat there on the phone for a minute and I'm like, well, I said, honestly, Robbie, I've been an elementary principal. I would say I've had primary and upper all together, but I've not really had one or the other separately other than the intermediate. And I said, I just feel like there's this calling for me to try primary. And he said, well, that's where I want you. So I gave him the right answer, and I'm glad I did because I love it. It's probably been my favorite grades and grade level to be in. I really miss not having second grade in our building this year, but having just K1 is kind of fun.
Mm-hmm.
And I honestly can't imagine right now going back to like a K5 building, or, I mean, I wouldn't say I won't do it. There's going to be probably some chances down the road where I'm going to need to do that, and that's okay. But I really love these young primary kids. They're just, like I said, I don't know if it's that celebrity status that we feel sometimes. Um, I know you've talked about some discipline issues that you've had in your building. I think we all have that, but I feel like the ones that we have are a lot less sometimes than, what people at the middle school and high school setting see. Like I always tell people, I don't have drugs and vapes and fist fights. I've got boogers, and I stuck a stick up my nose at recess and he called me dumb, or, I mean, there are some things that are a little more serious than that, but for the most part, it's pretty easy to manage. And like you said, it's more about teachable moments versus the hardcore consequence thing. But, what to you makes primary leadership so unique compared to the upper grades?
Well, I think it's where your passion is too, because I've always leaned more towards and felt more comfortable with the lower grades. Like I said, with coaching, I did go, K5 at certain parts of that role, but I just felt that connection. And they talk about those light bulb moments. Oh my goodness. And the growth that you see in the kids, especially now behaviorally. Like you may not see it as a classroom teacher for the 180 days that we have with them, but you see it long term, like over the 3 years that they're in our building. And it's like, wow, they have really grown up. They've really matured. They've really learned way more than just arithmetic and writing and and reading. Just being able to be with them, to see them through difficult times, but then also to see them just grow and learn from it. I, I, I've always been used to that grade level and just felt the most comfort. I think you just go where you feel like you're led to. So
Yeah. Do you have any memorable like moments in these 4 years that really stand out to you? Like, I'm in the right place, or man, I'm glad I'm doing this. Anything that really stands out? Like, oh yeah, this is why I'm here.
yeah, I try to keep a gratitude journal. Shout out to Dr. Blaze, our superintendent. She gave us notebooks last year that had that she, encouraged us to think of something positive that we saw for, every day of the school year. And I've tried to keep that up because you can get pulled down in the negative, but you don't want to stay there long. I'm a little more optimistic rather than pessimistic. As being a leader, you have to be at times.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of my most memorable stories that I could share about my first week as principal, having to talk to a kindergarten student during lunchtime. So the student came in the office with the adult that was helping escort her, and the student was just yelling out, "But we just threw the cheese. We didn't throw the pizza." And I had to keep my composure from laughing as the student was, trying to rationalize her choices and explaining that the food fight could have been a lot worse than what it was.
Right. Oh,
But
awesome.
and then I did ask her why she started the food fight, and she said, well, the table was very loud and a little rowdy, so I thought yelling food fight would settle them down a bit. So I think just enjoying that moment afterwards with the staff was probably really good, but having that first week, first year as principal, that's the story that sticks out. And they rationalize what, it could have been worse, lady. We could have had that whole that whole pizza all over everything, but we just did the cheese.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. So one thing that stands out in my mind when I made that transition to primary principal, and I don't know if you remember this or not, but when I was applying, I reached out to you and like, what do I need to know? What are some things to focus on? And you had told me science of reading. I don't know if you remember that or not. She's like, Brad, you really need to make sure you know, because it was just coming out. That's been 4 years ago and it wasn't brand new, but the whole new wave was science of reading, and curriculums going to science of reading. And the way we teach reading is totally different because of the science of reading. So, I tried to do my brush up as quick as I could. And I felt like I answered questions in the interview process around that really well. But it didn't really hit me until one of the first walkthroughs I did in a kindergarten classroom. The students were working on R papers, and they had worksheets with the letter R on them. And I'm going around, and kids are just working away. And I walked up to one kid and I said, "So what's that letter?" And he goes, "Er." I was like, "Oh, this kid doesn't know what that letter is." So I walked around to another kid and I go, "What's that letter right there?" He goes, "Er." I'm like, what? My teachers are not teaching. They don't know what that letter is, And I'd probably like 3 or 4 times. And then all of a sudden it's like Kim's voice was almost in my ear. Like, it's the science of reading, Brad. We're not doing letter recognition yet. We're going to do our sounds first. I was like, okay, they know their sounds. This is what science of reading is all about. So it was funny. It just, that calibration of like, I wasn't used to being around just, early literacy and kids learning to read. And we don't have to look up and see that that's an A and that's a B, but we need to know that B says buh and A says and R says And it was just, I felt kind of dumb in the moment. And I always share that story because it's like my introduction to not only the science of reading in practice, I guess, but kindergarten in general. So thanks for helping me with that, by the way.
Oh, you're welcome. Now we even learn different forms of R, like R can say ruh, like a happy puppy, and whew, yeah.
Sorts of stuff.
Sometimes I wonder how I learned how to read, because I was always that visual learner. Like I could spell a word and, not even, I would understand it just by the visual, but it definitely has changed. But
you're younger than me.
Boy, can we see a lot of growth too.
Right. You're younger than me, but honestly, when I think back to kindergarten, I mean, obviously we learned letters and we had tall tooth T and,
Yeah, I still had that one too.
The letter people, but I really remember still the Dick and Jane books and that repetition of see Dick run, see Jane, see Jane with the cat. And I even used those with my girls growing up just to get them to be reading, but they fell short of the science of reading phase just by a little bit, but they still learn to read, and look, I can too. So, well, hey, Kim, we're at 38 minutes, dude. You're rocking it, which means we're to my favorite part of the time, and you get to hear me sing my little jingle because it's rapid fire question time. So I'm going to this. I did not include these to you because I've been not wanting people to think about them ahead of time, because then it's not rapid fire. It's well thought out question time. So here we go, Kim.
I'm in an interview situation now.
That's right. I'm going to throw some questions at you. Some are going to be really random. Some are going to be, maybe a little more thought provocative, but here's an easy one to start off with. Question number 1, coffee or tea to start your day?
Coffee.
Me too. Black or cream?
Oh gosh, it has to have cream. I don't like the taste of coffee. So maybe I like coffee with my cream.
There you go. I'm a straight black person now.
Black, right? Yeah. That's what I
but
thought.
I will do like some cream every once in a while. Like there used to be somebody made an Oreo creamer. Oh, it was amazing because it felt like you were just drinking Oreos in your coffee. But just a plain like dairy creamer, that doesn't do anything for me. It's got to have some flavor. So what about your favorite elementary school lunch item, either, as a kid or now as the principal?
Oh, the square pizza as a kid. Yes. Definitely.
How can you go wrong? You got to have a side of corn.
Yes, side of corn. They don't make it here. I don't think they even make it. Breakfast pizza is got to be, one of up there too. So.
Yeah, I don't think we have rectangle or square pizza anymore. We actually have round pizza slices, and up until this year, we were having pizza every Friday. It might be cheese pizza, it might be pepperoni pizza, we've had chicken bacon ranch this year, which is interesting, but um, somehow we broke that record, and last week it was Cheeseburger Friday. So I don't know where pizza went, but hopefully it returns back someday soon, because that's one of my favorites too. What children's book do you think every classroom should have?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
What if everybody did that?
Oh, I like that one. That is a good one.
Have you seen that or heard of that one?
I've heard of it. Yes, I've seen it.
Yeah, just basically the premise is, well, if everyone threw just one piece of paper out on the ground, what would, that won't make an impact. But what if everyone did that, and then the next page has paper all over the park, that kind of thing. So it puts a spin on what's the right thing to do.
Right. All right. I like this one. This will be interesting. What walkie-talkie call sign you secretly wish you had?
I actually do have a walkie-talkie call sign.
Well, let's hear it.
But I wish I had Maverick because I love Top Gun.
Nice. You know what my call sign for you is. What do I always call you?
Oh, yeah. What was it?
Oh, Kim.
Oh, I'm almost going to be 50, Brad. In a month, I'm going to be 50. What was it? Kimbalaya.
Kimbalaya. It's kind of like jambalaya, but
okay.
Kimbalaya. And what was I never allowed to call you?
Kimmy.
Kimmy. That's right. And it took me a while to get that. That's right.
Reserved for family only.
There you go. Let's see. Funniest thing a student has ever said to you?
Funniest thing.
That is a tough one because there's so many.
Mm-hmm. What's yours? And then maybe I'll think of one.
Gosh. So I'll just use today. We had a little kindergartner walking out at dismissal time, and she goes, "It smells good out here." And I go, "Yeah, that's my new cologne." And what did she say? She didn't say cologne. She said something else. Now I can't remember what it was, but it was funny because she didn't even use the right word. And I will say she's an EL student, so I'm not sure if it was the English that was tripping her up or what.
But you knew what she meant by the context, so
that's good. Yes. So it was kind of funny. I don't know if she knew what cologne was or not, but maybe she did. So who knows? But what do you think? Anything coming to mind?
I think honestly that, kids, especially at our age level, are so observant.
Yes.
But I think it was last year, I got a haircut, and my hair goes through different stages throughout. Sometimes I want it long, sometimes I want it short, whatever. I cut 6 to 7 inches off my head, and I went to kindergarten. I thought, oh, I'm just going to be bombarded with, what? You got your hair cut. Nothing. Crickets. And then 3 or 4 days later, one of the most observant kindergartners said, "Hey, did you get new shoes?" And I'm like, "No, I cut off 6 to 7 inches of my hair, but okay." They knew it was something. They just couldn't think of what. I don't know if that's the most funniest, but that's what popped in my head.
Made me laugh. So if you weren't a principal or in education, what job do you think you'd have?
Probably an organizer of some sort, because I like to organize things.
Well, you can come over to the Taggart household and you'd probably be a career in the making, because we could always use a little more organization over here. Last rapid fire question for you. One word that your staff would use to describe you.
Aw. Caring.
I would agree with that. Mine would be amazing, because you are amazing, not only as a coach, but as a principal, an educator, a mom, a wife. Kim Kabrich is one amazing lady, folks. Let me tell you that.
Aw, thanks, Brad.
You're welcome. Not just saying that. I do think you're an amazing person. As we wind down here, Kim, I'm going to let you leave listeners with one thought. What's something that you wish more people understood about the principalship?
Principals are people too.
Oh, I like that.
We make judgment calls sometimes that are the right thing, and sometimes we have to take it back to the drawing board and think of other ways. But we have feelings. Broad shoulders are needed, but we do need to go on to the next thing, not dwell in negative. But principals are people too.
I love it. And that's a great way to end this conversation. Kim, thank you so much for being here, joining me today, sharing a peek behind that curtain of being a primary school principal. You rocked it. We're at 45 minutes and 20 seconds and counting. So great job. Thank you again for being here. I just appreciate you more than you know, both as a colleague and a friend.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Brad.
You're always welcome, and we'll get you back on again soon and maybe let you bring Mr. Plew with you along. I think he'd be fun. We're actually going to be reaching out to your intermediate principal soon. Shout out to Andrew Barand. I'm glad you beat him to the punch, though. So he's going to have to take second place to Kim, that's for sure. So, all right, listeners, it's that time. We're going to wind it down here. Tune in again next week when we come back with another episode. Who knows what topic it'll be next week? Right now, I'm not teasing anybody. We'll just tell you when it gets here. Well, it is that time once again. Tune in next week as we come at you with another episode. I want to thank Kim again for joining us. This has been your host, Brad, of Interventions and Detentions, where the real learning begins. See you next week.